about last week where he has played a little bit better. What a pass by Rondo.
That might be the dagger.
Why not? Why can't I be the MVP of the league? Why can't I be the best player in the league?
The Lakers repeat back-to-back titles. The LA Lakers, the 2010 NBA champions.
So, thanks to Google, I was able to scour the deepest bowels of the interwebs, and I was able to pull some articles that had projections for what the NBA was going to be like upon the 2020 season, as in the players that were supposed to be stars, the players that were supposed to be really good. And so this list is based off of those projections. YouTube titles only have so many characters, so this isn't necessarily for players that were just supposed to be stars and now they've disappointed. Yeah, there's a lot of those on this list and they're going to be funny to look at, but this is just looking at some projections that were made back around the year 2015-2016, and a lot of them are fascinating because I don't think it worked out the way some of us thought it would. Okay, I want to start Rodney Hood's section off by saying I have never watched him and thought he was supposed to be an all-star. I never watched him and thought he was star material or franchise player material or anything like that. More so, I've taken him at face value, and Rodney Hood has been a good role player basically. However, in the depths of the summer 2016, there was then a prediction that had Rodney Hood, who was then a member of the Utah Jazz, averaging 15 points a game. There was a prediction that had him becoming an all-star. Now, fair assessment maybe, it was only his second year, he was doing okay. And so the explanation behind it was, if Hood could take strides in getting to the hoop and getting fouled, he can move from, quote, weapon to offensive centerpiece. That's a gigantic leap and not many players have made it. However, in fairness to this prediction, it does say here that the other path forward for him could be a Wesley Matthews type guy, somebody who just comes in and hits threes as a role player, maybe 3-and-D. And so here we are starting the 2020 season, and I think that's a fair assessment for Hood. Definitely not a terrible player, not at all the disappointment that you are going to see further down this list, but that's why he is number 9. And personally, I had just never known that anybody thought he was going to be an all-star, so it was worth mentioning that find on this list. Okay, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist was drafted in the year 2012. When this article was written, he had finished his 4th season and he actually only played 7 games in the 2016 season because of a dislocated shoulder. Now, I had no clue by the year 2016 that anybody still hoped that he was going to become an all-star, yet here is a prediction saying by the year 2020 he would be an all-star hopeful. And so the justification for that here says that during those 7 games he did play in 2016, the Hornets net rating jumped to 15.7 during the 205 minutes that he played. And so based on his 2014 to 2015 play, that sample size was valid because that season showed that it wasn't a fluke, saying that that year when he did not play, the Hornets net rating was negative 8.3 versus when he did play and they were at a 3.9 net rating. It also goes on to say that his defensive skills would eventually make him defensive player of the year worthy when he's healthy. So I mean, I get why in 2016 when he was still just 22 years old, you didn't want to give up on him all the way, but here we are entering the 2020 season. He's around 25-26 years old. I don't really see all-star in his future. He started 3 games last year, hasn't showed any kind of significant improvement, and the shooting form could probably benefit from lethal shooter. Markelle Fultz makes this list kind of by default, but it is worth mentioning here that still, right now, he's only around 20-21 years old. And being that he was drafted in 2017, I don't think it's fair to really say he should have been like a star or an all-star by now, but I would say all-star hopeful at least. I do remember the Fultz hype when he was drafted. I do remember thinking the Celtics were after him and wondering how Isaiah Thomas was going to be able to play with him. That was before everything flipped and Kyrie got there, but yes, at very least, Fultz was supposed to be a lot farther ahead than he is right now, but we know the situation. To be honest, we haven't even really seen how he stacks up against NBA competition yet. As far as I'm concerned, this is pretty much his rookie year because this might be the first time we actually see him on the court for any long amount of time, any large sample size. So as a guy who was picked first overall, he still has a very good chance to make it off the list of guys who did not get close to their projections. I think the difference between him and a guy like Lonzo, who is not going to be on this list, I'm just going to tell you now. Look, LeVar hyped the hell out of Lonzo to the point that it was trolling. So we knew he was good in college, but he hasn't come to the league and just totally faltered. standard. For the people that have watched him, when he's been on the court, he's been pretty good. The court vision is there, he's a good rebounder for a point guard, and with this fresh start on a young team, I don't think that ball has fallen off of the track of his projection yet, and that's really who this list is more made for. Justice Winslow. After his rookie year, there was a prediction that had him as an all-star hopeful for 2020, and it was based off of the fact that in his rookie year, he was very valuable on the defensive end of the ball. Specifically, there was a math metric that showed that he saved more points than all but 36 players in his rookie year, and the thought process went that he could be a dynamic scorer in college, so if that were to come through on top of his defense, he would definitely be an all-star hopeful at least. Well, I'd say that was a fair projection, and literally as I got ready to record this video, he debuts the 2020 season with 27, 7, and 7. Extremely good game for him, not against a great team, but that is definitely a positive sign for Miami fans, being that he is in year 5, and I know they, as well as people who were writing this article, were hoping that by now he would start to show some signs of breakout, because if you were going by the last few years and the way it's been tracking, it's been looking more like role player. So just 23 years old, very long time to go, especially when you consider that a torn labrum kept him out of all of his second year nearly. He only played 18 games that season, so really he's only got 3 seasons in the league, and he's in a role where he can grow as much as he needs, so we'll see where it goes from here. Oh yeah, there were very high hopes for the Dragon when he was taken 4th overall by the Phoenix Suns in the 2016 NBA draft. The scouts had no doubt that he was a future star, that he was actually going to be the #1 pick. That was a thought back then, and they said he could do it all. Post up, shoot from the perimeter, drive, kick, rebound, and they saw him as, quote, the NBA's next great European import. So I've been very cautious up to this point talking about guys that only have 4 years in the league, 5 years in the league. Bender was 21 last season, and he's only got 3 seasons. But see, what we're looking at is projection, how it's tracking. And right now, there's absolutely nothing that says any of what was projected is going to become true. It's just not there. So at this point, if you were gonna say he's gonna turn into a good role player in a couple of years, yeah, that's doable. But from where he's at, next great European import, Dirk Nowitzki, nah, doubt it. Jahlil Okafor is entering his 5th season. He is now with the New Orleans Pelicans, and this tenure is being talked about as a resurgence story. It's looked at that way because he was drafted and looked at as a 2010 All-Star in the future. That's just what it was. There's literally a quote here in his prediction that says, "It's not all that far-fetched to suggest Okafor is already the NBA's most deft low-post scorer, even though he's still in college," because this was written when he was in college. That was the type of hype around him, and everybody wanted him. Luckily, out of big men, Minnesota went with Cat, and Philly landed him with the 3rd pick. Crazy thing is, he came in and filled rookie expectations. He played only 53 games, but averaged 18 points and 7 rebounds. His defense was a problem from the jump, but he was on track then, and it just got worse every year. It got bad enough to the point that at some point during this small 5-year sample size, we were discussing whether he was going to be able to stick around in the league or not. So now playing a role for the Pelicans, again, it's just resurgence. It's about proving he can play, proving he belongs, and he's been pretty decent for them. But pretty decent was not the projection for Okafor, it was star. That being said, it looks like he's going to be serviceable, and sometimes that's all you can ask of an NBA player. Not everybody is made to be a franchise cornerstone, and right now we can probably say that is true of Okafor. Okay, Josh Jackson is where we can draw the line and just say bust. When he was drafted, the talk around him was straight cash money. While he was still in college, every scout had basically the same thing to say. And specifically, they mentioned that his mental and competitive side of the game were where they needed to be for him to carry over his college talents to the league and become a star. One scout said that Josh Jackson was the best shooting guard prospect that he had ever scouted. And so as follows, he thought that by 2020, he was supposed to be one of the top players at his position in the NBA. So he had all the skills and the mental toughness to make it happen in the league according to the scouts. Then this summer, the Suns basically let him go for salary relief. And just yesterday, the Grizzlies declined his team option. He's playing in the G League this year. So he was taken 4th overall by Phoenix in the 2017 draft. He's only played 2 seasons, and there's already a question like, next season is not promised for him. And it's not even just his play on the court, it's off-court struggles. So at the age of like 21 years old, there's nothing to say that he can't come back and be a role player throughout the 2020s, but to go from where he is now to reach his star projections, that would take something pretty miraculous, basically like we hadn't seen before. Andrew Wiggins was supposed to have exploded by now. There's simply no other way to put it. He had MVP projections, All-Stars, All-NBA. He was supposed to be helping lead the Timberwolves to Western Conference Finals appearances, and there was supposed to be this whole thing going on in Minnesota with him, and there's no way to tell if it's ever going to materialize. Right now, it's leaning towards a hard no. Back when the predictions were made, he was just starting to put up the numbers that you expected. So you get to around the 2017 season, and he was already at about 24 points a game. That was at the age of 21 with endless space and room to get better. So the problem isn't even that he stagnated or didn't get better, it's that he actively got worse. There are no expectations of the Timberwolves making the playoffs this year. There are no expectations of his first All-Star appearance. He is nowhere near one of the top players in the league. At this point, we would have to start with him getting back to where he was in 2017 and then go from there. So coming into his 6th season, if we don't at least get there, then we can kind of go ahead and drop all the star projections. As a matter of fact, most people have already dropped them. The way it's tracking, Wiggins will likely be no more than a role player, to be honest. Put up some points, not very efficiently, and leave us all to wonder what happened to all those tools that he had coming into the league. How did it not materialize? And there you have it. There's the list of guys who had star projections by the year 2020, and pretty much none of their careers are over. Rodney Hood has carved out a nice role for himself. Same thing with Winslow. Okafor looks like he could be on his way to doing that. There's only really 2 active busts here, and the rest still have time to make something of themselves. But nevertheless, it is very entertaining what we thought the NBA was going to look like by 2020 just a couple of years ago. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, comment, and sub. Also hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications when another episode of NBA 2010s drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.